back, everyone. Thank you for sticking with us. Tonight, we are joined by Kelsi Hobbs. And Kelsi, thank you for joining us tonight and making the time.
No problem.
So you are an applied microeconomics assistant professor at the University of Maine, and that is quite the mouthful. You want to break that down for me a little bit?
It is. I basically spend half my time doing research and the other half of my time teaching the students at University of Maine.
Okay, so tonight we're here to talk about avoiding lies in statistics. Now, what does that mean? Because I didn't know numbers could lie.
Yeah, so I should probably clarify that it's not the statistics' fault. They definitely don't lie. Numbers don't lie, but the idea here is that people can spin those numbers in a way that's maybe not exactly what they mean.
Okay, and what does that mean? Spinning the numbers, skewing results? What are we talking about?
Yeah, I think just turning the results into something that can be misrepresented or allowing us to be a bit biased. And so we want to be careful about the context that we see numbers in.
And do you have any examples, like what are some of the signs that we can look for to know that somebody is kind of spinning those results to give us something that they wanted us to see?
Yeah, so I think there's a few different things we can focus on. One thing, it can be the sample and the way that we've chosen our sample. So a lot of times we don't have the opportunity to ask every single person in the United States about their opinion on something, right? So we use a sample because it's easier to survey a handful of people as opposed to ask everyone about their opinion. But the size of that sample matters. So if I'm interested about how everyone in the US feels about something, I probably shouldn't ask just 2 or 3 people about their opinions, right? I need a larger sample than that. So that's one thing that we want to be concerned about. We also might want to think about how we're sampling people. Are we asking people that might have a particular opinion, or are we asking a random group of people? So those of us that are in kind of like the mass statistics speak of things really like the word random sampling. We think that if we kind of randomly sample a big group of people, that's going to give us a better idea of everyone's opinion as opposed to just a small groups.
And so, those statistics, that doesn't just apply to something like opinions, that can apply to things like medical surveys and things like that as well, right?
Yeah.
So what are some things that people can do to make sure that the information that they're getting is, I don't want to say correct, but a big enough sample? Where can they look? How can they find out?
Yeah, so a lot of times numbers are going to have some sort of source that they've gotten those numbers from. So we want to look into that a little bit more. So one example that I've kind of been using recently is in my class, I tend to hear from students like, oh, math is the worst. I just really don't like math. Math is so bad. So I've had this opinion, oh, math must be terrible. The students just don't like it. But there's actually a survey that was done by Texas Instruments. They're the ones that kind of sold those graphing calculators we all were required to buy for a while. They actually found that 46% of students like math.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was shocked. So I dug into those numbers a little bit more. It turns out that they kind of commissioned a survey to see how students are feeling about math. And so you might originally think like, oh, Texas Instruments really wants to sell their calculators. So maybe they've only asked certain people about whether they like math or not. But it turns out they actually hired an outside research company to kind of do the survey. So this independent company did it. That gives us a little more faith in those numbers because Texas Instruments kind of said, hey, somebody that's not trying to sell a calculator, can you ask these questions for us instead? So those types of things are what we want to look out for.
So those are kind of the factors that we can look at and we go, this is something that's unbiased when we look at third parties or anything like that. Are there any ways, let's say if it's not a third party, can we still see if those are unbiased results?
Yeah, so I think that you just have to see whether there's any sort of bias that the person that's asking the questions might have that would lead them to maybe tell you something that's not true. So you just want to be asking, for example, with me, I have a bunch of students that are in micro, and maybe I'm asking them, how they feel about economics on campus, and I'm only asking kids that are taking microeconomics, so surely they're going to say something like, oh, econ is great, I really love it, this whole thing. But if I ask the whole campus that question, it might be a bit different. So I might be asking my class because I want to make sure that all the kids really like economics. But you might think, oh, Dr. Hobbs is a little bit biased about that.
Well, Kelsi, thank you so much for coming in here and chatting with us tonight. After the break, we will have your full 5-day forecast and a look at your national news.